So y'all can't really see me. But I think there's definitely something to... It's not really about using drugs or not using drugs. It's about using drugs carefully and knowing what drugs you're using. And understanding that every single drug affects your body differently. So, cannabis, weed, attaches to the cannabinoid system. You know, cannabis contains delta-9 THC. But then there's now this thing called delta-8 THC, which also attaches to the cannabinoid system, but in a slightly different way. So it has a very similar high, but the high is slightly different. But then there are opiates, like morphine or codeine, fentanyl, things like that. And they attach to the opioid system. And it doesn't matter if it's morphine or codeine, which is natural, or fentanyl, which is synthetic. It doesn't matter if, you know, whatever it is, if it attaches to the opioid system, the mu opioid system, then it's going to have a similar high. Slightly different, but similar. So, sorry you guys can't really see me. You guys don't really need to see me, you just need to hear what I'm saying. Because what I'm saying is kind of important, which is that so many people hear the word drug and they think one thing. But really, drugs are multiple different types of things. There are psychedelics, which LSD, psychedelic mushrooms, DMT, these things attach to this 5-HT2A serotonin receptor. And any drug that attaches to the 5-HT2A serotonin receptor is going to have a psychedelic effect. All psychedelics are slightly different, but they're all going to have a similar effect. And I think this is the thing that we should have been taught in school. But the thing is, they don't want to teach you this in school because then it kind of teaches you how to be safe with drugs. You know, because drugs like methamphetamine, drugs like Adderall, they attach to basically the same exact receptors in the same exact way. Methamphetamine and Adderall is amphetamine and methamphetamine is meth. But they basically attach to the receptors in the same way. Now, the main difference between these two substances is when it comes to meth, it's usually sniffed or smoked. And when it comes to Adderall, it's usually eaten. And when you eat a drug or when you smoke a drug, it can become a completely different thing. Most of the time when you eat substances, it's weaker than if you smoke it. The only instance where this is different, where I can see, is cannabis. Weed, when you eat weed, the liver turns THC into 11-hydroxy-THC, which is a little more psychoactive than regular THC. But these little things, right? I know so much about drugs and drugs education, drug knowledge and receptors and things like that. And it's like, most people have no idea, right? Most people just do substances and they don't know what they're doing. Most people just do things because their friends do it, or peer pressure, or, you know, the doctor said, or some other shit. But I don't know, I think it's very important to get educated and to know what you're doing, right? But, yeah. Now, I can go on and on about many different drugs like Xanax, how they attach to the GABA receptors, alcohol, how it attaches to the GABA receptors, and all these different substances. And we use these substances so often. SSRIs are used for depression, Xanax is used for anxiety, and so many people take these substances without questioning it. And without generally knowing how it's affecting their body. They just say, yeah, it took my anxiety away. But how? How it did it is by GABA. Now, by working the GABA receptors, the system, you can tweak it and it can relieve anxiety. But drugs are no joke. So, like, that's why I tend to stick with plant substances, because it's not just necessarily if a substance works on GABA, it's how intense does it work on GABA? How strong does it attach to that receptor? If you can find something that attaches to the receptor weaker, then another thing that works better, that still works, it's technically better for you, right? The more functional we can be through society, the better. You can't function if you take a full Xanax bar, you ain't gonna function. Or if some of these drugs cause damage long term, and you just have to know these things. If you don't know what you're doing, you're gonna think, well, weed's safe, so why would this not be safe? The doctor gives it. And that's the dumbest response I hear when people talk about drugs when they're so uneducated. They say, well, it's legal, alcohol's legal, but alcohol is one of the most dangerous drugs on this planet. Like, I don't know how to explain it, but there's research done on this shit. It's not just words. This isn't just my opinion. There's studies been done on some of the most dangerous drugs, from the most dangerous to the safest. It's just the information's out there. The information on cannabis, how weed is so safe, and the information on, I don't know, there's so many different substances. These things are out there. You can find scientific research articles and papers, and it's all on the internet. Everything. You just gotta do the research.